It was an ordinary day. It was like hundreds of other days in my life. Gray, dull, and sometimes annoying. Today at work, by the way, I work in the office of a brand new company that opened not long ago. It was a complete mess. It wasn't so much the paper reports that mattered, but the phone that didn't stop for a minute. The stationary station that stood next to my desk was squealing like hell, and every time more and more new complaints were heard from the receiver. Someone's money was not counted. Someone asked to transfer the necessary details. Someone had problems with the site, etc. Yes, even the boss himself, Trofim Nikolaevich, personally called with the most selective scolding about the fact that my productivity leaves much to be desired. Listen, you should go further. Try to sit here for at least half a day. You will understand how much a pound is worth. Of course, scratching your belly, not carrying bags. In general, as you already understood, my day turned out to be simply magnificent. I left the office late in the evening because the boss person indicated above thought that I would need to stay for 3 hours and work with documents. A goat. It was already around 22:30 when I approached the stop. Luckily for me, it turned out to be empty. There wasn't a single soul around the entire intersection. Lord, what a relief. I stood with my eyes half closed and took a deep breath of the cold night air with pleasure. I was brought out of this trance by lights looming on the horizon. It was a bus. The car, squeaking its brakes and opening its doors, silently invited you into the warm interior. I didn't object. I sat down on an empty seat by the window and leaned my head back on the glass. There were at most 8 to 10 passengers on the bus. A woman with trunks, a man in a beret and coat, a boy in a military uniform, and all of them were as exhausted as I was. Not wanting to stare at my unwitting companions any longer, I pulled my headphones out of my windbreaker pocket and began flipping through my playlist, looking for something soothing. After that I was drawn to sleep. However, the first bump that came across completely discouraged me from closing my eyelids. I turned around sleepily and dissatisfiedly, as if trying to find a culprit of my sudden awakening in the bus. But something else caught my eye. On the right side of me across the aisle sat a strange, stooped man. I don't remember this guy riding among the passengers, and the next stop is still at least 10 minutes away. Very strange. Slightly sobered by such a sudden meeting, I began to look at the stranger. He was wearing the simplest clothes, dirty boots, jeans, a jacket several sizes too big, and a hat. I couldn't see his face, because the alien was sitting, hiding him with a puffy collar. And really, what did I get to the bottom of him? An ordinary grandfather goes home to his old woman at night. If he doesn't arrive on time, he'll get hit between the eyes with a broom. Such thoughts made me smile, and I squeezed it into my fist so as not to disturb the people. Suddenly, the man started coughing deafeningly. He was so disgusting that I even involuntarily winced. It was like a pot bubbling on the stove, with water boiling out of it. Bubbling and wheezing came from his throat for about a minute, after which the stranger fell silent. I put the fallen headphones back in again and tried to take my mind off this man. Really, what's wrong with it? Well, he sits and is silent. So the whole salon is silent. Well, he cleared his throat. Who doesn't happen to him? Maybe he smokes a lot. And still, somewhere deep down there was a premonition that something was wrong with him. Another bump jerked me out of my slumber. This time I woke up somehow quickly, as if I had not slept. It was uneasy on the bus. The atmosphere here had noticeably thickened and was now pressing on me with all its weight. The slightly trembling light of the lamps, scratches on the seats, cloudy windows, literally everything screamed about some unknown danger, the spirit of which hovered like a slippery python in the silent interior of the bus. I mechanically turned my head towards the strange passenger and was stunned. A puddle of blood was spreading on the floor under his feet. In the dim light, this puddle looked like spilled oil, which made my insides clench even more with fear. The man himself sat in the same position, without making a sound, as if I had been stung. I jumped up, grabbed him by the chest, and began to shake him as hard as I could. People, this man feels bad here. Stop the bus. Someone call an ambulance. However, the passengers responded to my cries for help with no help at all. Stop, guy. Don't touch him. The exclamations of the passengers were cut off as soon as a hoarse growl came from the stranger's collar sticking out on end. I lowered my eyes in fear. A pair of burning eyes was looking at me from the shadow of the gate. From fright, my legs became numb and rooted to the floor. What was looking at me was clearly no ordinary guy. A second later, the creature disguised as a human bared its teeth in a creepy smile consisting of wolf teeth. The paralysis of horror still haunted me. The monster grabbed my hands and squeezed them to the point of hellish pain. After that, he grabbed me by the arms and threw me to the other end of the salon like a basketball. The last frame flashed in my eyes as this monster jumps onto the... Opening my eyes a little, I looked around the place where they dragged me. It turned out to be a cave. In the light of the dim torches, shadows flickered on the bare stone walls. The creature, still holding me on its shoulder, headed to the far corner where the light could not reach. As we approached the dark part of the cave, the smell grew, a very strange smell. At first it was barely noticeable, merging with the dampness, but then I realized with horror that it could be producing it. I was thrown into a pile of something soft and slimy, into a pile of half-decayed human remains. My body literally fell into this stinking mess of people of varying degrees of decomposition. I held my breath and began to frantically run my eyes around. In the moonlight that barely made its way here, glassy eyes, skulls, viscous rotted flaps of skin and muscle flashed here and there. This picture caused an irresistible wave of panic, from which all my insides shrank into a lump filled with horror. Consciousness immediately suggested the only correct thought, to run without looking back. Holding back the urge to vomit, I began to get out of the mountain of corpses as quietly as possible. Plopping onto the floor, I immediately threw off my jacket, soaked in a putrid mess. It was impossible to make out anything in the darkness. Hands fumbled along the wet wall, directing the body towards the exit. Along the way I picked up a couple of sharp rocks in case I had to get into a fight. With quiet steps I reached the exit from the tunnel into a room with torches. Not far away there was a passage to the outside. Forming an escape plan in my head, I still looked around cautiously, searching with my eyes for my captor. Luckily for me, he wasn't here at that moment. The nervous joy that took over my brain immediately eclipsed my common sense. I rushed outside. Running out of the cave, I ran at full speed, as it seemed to me, in the direction of the bus. If I'm lucky, the radio I can use to call for help will be working. Only this thought spurred me on to run and not stop. Blinded by a wave of emotions, I rushed among windbreaks and thorny branches. It seemed like there would be no end to this forest. I stopped only after 10 minutes of continuous running. My lungs were burning, and circles were flickering in my eyes. Suddenly, a crash came from the left. Before I could react, I was knocked down by someone. Adrenaline rushed through my body in a second. I was about to grab a stone from my pocket to hit the attacker in the head, but my hand was immediately nailed to the ground. Without stopping kicking, I screamed at the top of my lungs. A blow landed on the cheek. Quiet. Calm down. It's me, the driver. Where is he? Did you see him? It really was the driver. I, slightly recovering from the shock, answered in a whisper. No, I didn't see him. This beast dragged me into its lair, but I managed to escape. And then, suddenly my companion interrupted me, pausing. Lair, well, we have to go. He might be very close. The two of us walked towards the bus. At one point my companion stopped. I looked back, but he only whispered, Go, go. Everything is fine. The laces are untied. I'll catch up. I turned around silently. Before I had time to take 3 steps, the bolt of a shotgun clanged behind me. A cold barrel pressed against my back. On your knees, creature. Raise your hands and just twitch. The driver shushed me, poking me with a cold barrel between my shoulder blades. I, trembling all over, sank to the ground and prayed. What did I do? You promised to take me to the bus. For people like you, there is only one road to hell. Do you think I didn't notice that you are not the same person you used to be? The interlocutor asked angrily. I do not understand. What are you talking about? Have you gone crazy there? Normal people cannot run several kilometers on broken legs. Look for yourself. You have a bare bone sticking out of your trouser leg. I stretched my hand to my right leg and with horror felt a bone protruding from the RIP of my trousers. Everything inside began to tremble and breathing turned into a pitiful whimper. What is happening to me? Let's take me to the hospital. Please, they will cure me there. I don't want to become a monster. You have already become one. This creature doesn't bring the living into its abode. Well, it doesn't. She took you to her only so that your transformation would be successfully completed. Yes, I would let you go. She won you so easily. It's unlikely, alas, son, but there is no other way out. I'll have to kill you. This beast has already produced offspring for 10 years to come. My job is to reduce your population. And now, behind me I heard the barely audible creak of a trigger. I closed my eyes. Shot. It's a shame that the driver didn't have the courage to finish me off. Still, pity is your main weakness. And now I have absolutely no emotions. Only an animal, frantic, insatiable hunger. I became much faster and stronger. However, my appearance underwent significant changes, which the weak human psyche was clearly not ready to put up with. I quickly found myself a camouflage. The pool mushroom picker didn't even have time to come to his senses, and I was already tearing his throat out with all my might. His clothes suited me perfectly. I was especially pleased with the huge hood. Tonight will be my first meeting with people. Now I'm already waiting for the bus at the forest belt. Soon he stops in the right place, and I enter the salon. So far no one has guessed who I really am. I try to behave as naturally as possible. The driver apparently realized that I was new, or he simply recognized him by the shin bone protruding from his leg. Either way, it's time to start the show. I'm still not good at simulating a cough, but a couple of passengers have already paid attention to me. One of them is already coming towards me. Now it will be fun. This happened when I was in my second year. It was winter, the end of the school semester. Now I understand that everything could have been completely different if not for one little thing. Approaching the bus stop, I flipped through the songs in the player. I have this habit. If a song doesn't suit my mood, I won't listen to it. Even now, I can lose a couple of minutes sitting in the car and clicking the radio buttons in search of the song of the day. Then I got so carried away that I walked past a windy bus stop where a small flock of students were languishing in the evening twilight, waiting for the bus. When the right song started playing in my headphones, I came to my senses, but didn't go back. I decided that I would sit on the next one. It would take about 5 minutes to get there. This decision changed everything, and here I am standing alone at the bus stop. The wind swings the yellow ball of a hanging lantern overhead. The bus arrived. Not mine. I realized it immediately. Even though the number was not visible, I just knew the buses on my route. New, green and white aquarium boxes, and this one was old. Many people probably still remember them. Orange in color, with round headlights on a wide muzzle. The bus, sighing hoarsely on its brakes, stopped at the stop. The sign with the route said that the final destination was railway station. Deciding that I could walk from the station to the hostel in about 10 minutes, and that I could wait half an hour for the bus on my route, I grabbed a peeling handrail and went into the front door. The salon was empty. In the yellow light of the lampshades, I saw only 4 figures in the tail section. I sat by the window in front. The doors closed with a hiss. The bus smoothly, like a steamship leaving the pier, moved away from the stop. From my seat I could see the driver's hands lying on the steering wheel. For about a minute, enjoying the warmth, I was in some kind of half asleep. Occasionally looking out the window, I thought about all sorts of nonsense. Looking at my reflection in a glass window that separated the driver's cabin from the passenger compartment. In the reflection behind me, the interior and the dark figures of the passengers behind me were quite clearly visible. And then I shuddered. For a moment it seemed to me that the passengers behind me were staring at me. But that's not what scared me, but the fact that they suddenly became closer by 2 whole rows of seats. I don't know why I was so scared. Well, we moved. Well, yes, all 4. That means they're going together. Everything is in the dark. No, more like gray, some kind of overalls or robes. What could possibly scare me about this? I tried to understand this while continuing to look at the passengers, and then one of them extended his hand forward. The other 3 slowly turned their heads towards him and then stared in my direction. Faces. I couldn't distinguish them well. The reflection trembled along with the glass, but I didn't want to turn around. There were no monsters there. No aliens either. There were no fans or almond-shaped bottomless black eyes either. Simple faces. Some gray people with rough features, looking like workers from old posters. They looked at me. All 4. The engine noise became quieter. The bus was approaching the stop, and I already had an idea. Isn't it time to get out of here? From these incomprehensible friends. Who knows what's on their mind? They probably won't touch me on the bus. On the other hand, in our troubled times, anything can happen. The stop passed outside the window. I took the headphones out of my ears. We didn't stop. on the other hand, who said that we had to stop here. I have never traveled this route. Maybe it shouldn't stop there. I wasn't afraid or panicked. Everything was too ordinary. But when I looked again at the reflection of the salon in front of me, I even pulled my head into my shoulders. They were already standing, all four. They stood without even holding the handrails, and they looked at me. Gray faces, gray eyes, and I looked back. I tried to make it look as natural as possible. I looked back as if without interest, just like that, and he immediately stood with his right side facing them, and facing the window, grabbing the handrail above his head. It was one step to the front door. At the next stop, I will get off, get out and walk, and then I'll try to forget this strange story, my stupid fear, and how the handrail under my hand became wet with sweat. I looked at them out of the corner of my eye, and they are on me. Pretending for a long time that I don't notice this is stupid. Asking what they need is scary. All that was left was to wait for the stop and get out. Controller. Then it dawned on me that I had never paid the ticket inspector or put the yellow rectangle of the ticket in my pocket, and the controller was not here. The second stop was left behind. We didn't stop. They shift bus, I thought. That's why these guys are here, with the faces of typical hard workers. That's why we didn't stop. Therefore there is no controller, and that's why he's so old. It transports workers from the enterprise to the station or to their homes, and I entered it, mistaking it for an ordinary bus. So they look at me, and that's why they show it with their hand. I didn't believe myself. They went, no longer hiding. Slowly, not threateningly, but somehow. Like people who go to the workplace to do their job. With such an expression on his face, the worker lays a brick, the auto mechanic twists, removes the nut. Let me later, in a warm dorm room, laugh at the frightened child who suddenly opened up in me, and now I was sure that they were coming at me. I looked over my shoulder into the cockpit. Now that I was standing, I could see the person inside. An elderly man in a dark sweater is driving. Sometimes, while rummaging through a box of various little things, you painfully stumble upon a sharp object. That's how I came across the look in the rearview mirror. A calm look, even a little mocking. He knew. He saw what was happening inside his bus, and four men were already approaching. I didn't need to turn around. I knew. In such situations, you need to say something like, "Are you having problems? What's the matter?" But I only had enough for a limp questioning movement of my head. Like, what is it? Why did you come to me? Do you need help, or my money, or my life? I'm not a weak link. I'm not ashamed of my fear then. You need to be on this bus. See these faces that are approaching you like a truck wheel on a beer can. The can is not even a problem, not an obstacle. It will simply be crushed in passing. One of them leaned somewhere between the seats and took out a large black plastic bag. The second one picked up a brown leatherette bag lying under the seat. Something metallic clinked in it. Still calmly they moved towards me. Calm faces, measured movements. The bus braked sharply, and then there was a roar, a ringing, and the sound of a signal. And four men immediately perked up, somehow fussily. Craning their necks, they looked behind my back. The doors opened, and all four of them ran past me and out of the bus, as if I wasn't there. I heard rough boots begin to move away with a dull creak. I finally let go of the handrail and saw blood on my hand when the bus crashed into something, and that's what happened. This sound cannot be confused with anything. My hand moved along the handrail, from which a loose screw, a piece of wire or something was sticking out. Something like that. An oblique groove across the entire right palm, but I was overcome with relief. Just think, there was an accident. But they no longer come at me so silently and fearfully. I walked down the steps. He looked ahead. Everything was clear. A gray Jiguli car jumped out of the alley, and so unsuccessfully that the bus didn't even have time to slow down. Four people from the bus were fussing around the car. One opened the hood for some reason. The three others were pulled out from behind the driver's wheel, and then one of them began to spread that same black plastic bag on the snow, and the other began to rummage through the brown bag with a dull ringing sound. I saw the driver of the Lada, a young guy. He didn't seem to be seriously injured. They laid him on the ground, and one of the workers bent over him. From the outside it looked as if the bus passengers were helping the poor guy who had been injured in an accident. Only the guy from the car kept trying to break free and get up, but two of the passengers were already pressing him to the ground, and the third was taking something oblong, metallic shiny, out of his bag. The fourth one turned around sharply and looked at me, and I'm on him. At the same moment, I heard a blow and a crunch, and saw an incomprehensible object, similar to a small tire iron, but with a hook, like a boat hook, quickly fall on the driver's head. Blood sprayed. One worker started beating. The second held the victim's hands. The third pressed his legs to the ground with his knee. The splashes of blood on the scarlet snow in the light of the only headlight that survived the accident, the left headlight of the bus, were like blots. I saw how the legs and arms of their victim twitched convulsively, when suddenly he died down and immediately became like a heap of rags, and the blood flowed, melting the ice and dirty snow on the asphalt. It's good that I didn't see even half of the picture because of their backs, otherwise I would have been dumbfounded. But the fourth was already coming towards me, slowly, without any emotion on his face, and then I ran. In such cases, they always write, I ran like never before in my life. No, I have never run so bad in my life. Never in my life has my heart pounded so wildly. My breathing has become unsteady, and my legs have become tangled. They didn't follow me. I walked around the block where the accident happened, where their bus was parked in a huge arc. In the hostel, I didn't tell anyone anything, but just sat half the night in the toilet, holding a cigarette in my left hand. The wound on my right was no longer bleeding, but it hurt a lot. Go to the police, tell friends, or just forget it all, like a bad dream, like the ravings of a madman. On Saturday morning, I was woken up by my roommate, sleeping on the toilet with my injured hand pressed to my mouth, as if shutting myself up. 2 days later, local television broadcast a story about a strange incident. A broken Lada car was found in the middle of Front Street, but there was no driver, no second car, no witnesses. It was also reported that over the past year this was the fourth empty, broken car found in the middle of narrow streets, secondary streets. And a week later, I already knew that a cruel murderer or murderers was operating in the city. Their victims were found along the roadside, often right at public transport stops, always feet towards the roadway. The bodies were incredibly brutally mutilated, and always in the articles published by the media it was written, the victim was allegedly waiting for the bus at the bus stop, or the body was allegedly thrown onto the side of the road from the car, and I saw that bus twice more. In the evening, returning from school on the eve of the new year, I saw him. He overtook me, and in the illuminated salon I saw the silhouette of a woman sitting with a book. Behind are 4 more gray figures. When the bus passed by, they were just getting up, and they walked slowly through the salon in her direction. The last time he drove slowly, and 4 stood in it, looking out the window at me and not holding the handrails. I turned into the first yard I came across. I don't know why they let me leave. I don't know who they are. I don't know why they are doing this. And I didn't check which bus route had the train station as its final stop. The scar on my arm remains, but I've somehow gotten used to it. I no longer travel by public transport. I have a car, but about once a year I shudder when I see a broken down car by the side of the road, a pile of garbage in a roadside ditch, or the silhouette of a bus in the evening twilight. I know he is out there somewhere, with its 4 passengers,